On the channel over the last couple of months, I've spoken quite a lot about Star Wars Battlefront. Now, whether that's talking about how upset I still feel over the game ending a few years ago, or just about the potential for more content if it was still around, I think it is safe to say that regardless of that, we won't be getting a new one anytime soon. And the next Star Wars multiplayer game, which is likely Star Wars Hunters, keeps on getting delayed, but even so, it will very easily be the next multiplayer game that I think we will receive, as nothing else multiplayer has been announced, and I don't think they're suddenly going to shadow drop something either. So today I want to talk about whether or not Star Wars Hunters can essentially fill the void that opened up when Battlefront 2 stopped receiving content. But before I do get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel with the notification bell turned on to never miss a piece of Star Wars gaming news. So right off the bat, I think it is obviously unfair to compare Hunters to Battlefront because they are vastly different games. Hunters is essentially a whole game dedicated to the heroes versus villains game mode, but expanded from Battlefront 2, which I absolutely love. So in terms of the overall gameplay and experience, it will be very different and something that perhaps a lot of people aren't necessarily looking for, which is obviously fine, but equally I think it's something that a lot of people have also been looking for. Now, another thing that is quite different is that the characters you play as in Battlefront, and more specifically the heroes, are taken directly from the films, whereas in Hunters you play as an original cast of characters that are inspired by things within Star Wars. Now, the big reason for this is because Hunters actually does have a canon story within it, which takes place around the time of The Mandalorian. So characters like Darth Vader, for example, obviously won't be coming to the game because that doesn't fit the narrative of the game and the timeline. So that's definitely worth thinking about when you're asking for characters to be added to the game, because I've seen countless comments asking for characters like Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, but that just won't be possible due to the narrative in the game. But also every game under the sun for Star Wars have had those characters in anyway, so I think it is nice to have new original people. So in those two regards then, in terms of the overall gameplay and the characters in the game, Hunters simply won't be able to fill that void of playing as our favourite characters in sprawling cinematic battles, but what it does do is introduce us to a great cast of new characters to fall in love with and learn about, which is something I'm always excited to do. Now, in terms of that void, a key area that I think Hunters can do really well at is something that Battlefront 2 did really well with as well, and that is providing us with content focusing on current releases. For example, when The Last Jedi, Solo, and The Rise of Skywalker all released, so literally the three films that came out when Battlefront 2 was getting content support, DICE added in tons of content surrounding them, including maps, heroes, and cosmetics. And the same can even be said for Battlefront 2015, because when The Force Awakens released in 2015 as well, DICE added a Jakku map based on the battle at the end of the original trilogy, in which we see the aftermath of in The Force Awakens itself. And likewise, when Rogue One released in 2016, they did a whole DLC for it with new maps, skins, heroes, and weapons. Now, the same can't be said with The Mandalorian in 2019, but because of The Rise of Skywalker releasing, I think that has to be the main focus. But despite that, DICE were always amazing at adding content that was relevant to the times, and I absolutely think Hunters can do the same. In fact, I know they can do the same in that game, and I think we definitely will be seeing that. So far, Hunters only has maps inspired by the original trilogy with Tatooine, Hoth, Endor, and Death Star 2 maps, but I have no doubt they will eventually add prequel and sequel trilogy maps as well, and when films and shows release, they can easily add content on it. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, we can't get sequel trilogy stuff because that would just break the canon with the timeline and everything, and you're absolutely right. So we won't be seeing a First Order Stormtrooper skin for Sentinel, which is definitely a bit of a shame, and why I honestly think they should have probably based this game after The Rise of Skywalker, because that opens the door to even more cosmetic options. But that doesn't mean we can't get maps in this game from the sequel trilogy films, and if you look at Star Wars Outlaws, they're even adding Kijimi and Canto Bight from the sequel trilogies into those games, because those planets were obviously still around during those times. Now, of course, there is more to it than just maps. Cosmetics and Hunters are essentially the other two major content pieces that Star Wars Hunters will have. So when it comes to cosmetics, we have actually already started to see many skins from the TV shows coming out, because if you take a look at Sentinel, he's already got skins inspired by the Incinerator and Mortar Troopers from The Mandalorian, and Zaina also has Correctional Officer outfit, which comes from the New Republic, which we do see in The Mandalorian and even more recently Ahsoka. So already there are just tons of incredible skins, but you've also then got weapon skins and even the sticker emotes that you can use as well. There's already a Narkina 5 reference in there, which is pretty nuts. So we're already seeing really good content inspired by TV shows that have somewhat recently released. So I think once the game is officially out, there is no reason why we won't be seeing content inspired by current releases. So let's just say the game released today and Skeleton Crew comes out next month. There is absolutely no reason as to why the game won't get content for it. Char and Scorer could easily get cosmetics inspired by the pirates within that that show, and J3 could even get a skin based on Jude Law's character, who is a Force wielder, as we saw in the trailer released at Star Wars Celebration. And then if the game has a really cool new species, then the game could also receive a new hunter inspired by that species, alongside a new map based on the main planet within the show. A content drop like that would honestly be insane. And something even more exciting is the Acolyte, which also releases next year, which is a show set in the High Republic era, so there will no doubt be tons of skins for everyone based on characters within that time period, along with maps as well of course, and even a bunch of new species that we've probably not seen in live action before, so getting content inspired by those things would also just be so much fun. Tie-in content like the stuff I've just been referencing is honestly one of the biggest things that I missed the most about Star Wars Battlefront 2 days. The regular content updates and discussions were obviously always super fun, but the hype around a brand new big Star Wars release in the cinema or TV, along with updates themed around that on a current game for multiplayer, I just think would be an incredible experience. So even though Star Wars Hunters does play very differently to Star Wars Battlefront 2, I honestly don't see why the community won't feel satisfied with Star Wars Hunters. It is a great game already and will have tons of amazing content to come in the future, so hopefully it won't get delayed again. And to answer the question at the start of the video of whether or not this will fill the void of Battlefront, I think in some ways it absolutely will, and in other ways it won't. But it is also unfair to compare them really, because they are just very different games made by entirely different people. But I did think that today's video was an interesting discussion. So let me know what you think about this all in the comments below. That is going to be it from me today though. Thank you all very much for watching, and may the Force be with you always.